Coming up on the CHGO Cubs Podcast, the Cubs introduce Ryan Pressly. We'll hear from him. Plus, we're ranking the center fielders in the National League. Could PCA vault all the way to the top by the end of this upcoming season? And the Dodgers are the devil. Who's going to the vault? CHGO Cubs next. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast. It is Wednesday, January 29th. Nice sunny day here in Chicago. Might hit 40. It's like opening day weather out there, Cody.
It is 40. Back-to-back days where I'm sitting here regretting not riding the e-bike down all the way down here.
When you can.
All 6.5 miles from between here and my house, which, if you live in the city, 6.5 miles is like going 40 miles.
Yeah.
If you live out
in a car.
If you live in rural Illinois, going 40 miles is like going 6.5 here in the city. So, I wish I rode the bike here. Would have had to bundle up a little bit more, but
you'd have been cold.
Oh, yeah,
you'd have been cold. This is one of those days where people in Chicago, you see all the goofballs on the trails, on the lakefront. They're all out in their shorts, and you're like, are you out of your mind? It's still 40. It's still 40, and off the lake, out. Oh, man.
It definitely is one of those days where, like, us Midwesterners are like, shorts and hoodie.
Yeah.
Let's go, But, yeah. No, if I would have got on the bike, I definitely would have wore this, probably a beanie and maybe another layer. But,
today's a day Big Dave might wear shorts to the studio.
Yeah.
It could happen. Could happen. We've got the Ryan Pressly press conference to talk about. We've got the Dodgers doing it to the Cubs again. 3 more relievers off the table in just the last 24 hours, and one of them that we've talked a lot about going to the Dodgers. This PCA thing, we're going to talk. We've been going through. We started yesterday with left field. Tomorrow we'll do right field. Today, center field. We're putting out our list, best center fielders in the National League, trying to rank them where they stand right now. That's all coming up in just a bit.
Before we move forward,
we
yesterday's show audio and like the audio version.
Like the podcast version?
We put it up late. So if you haven't listened to it,
you should.
If you missed it somehow, some way, if you're not watching live with us right now on YouTube, I don't know how it happened, but we didn't put it up until
but it's up now.
Last night. But it is up right now, yeah. And yesterday we talked about a lot of stuff. So
you could double up your lunch.
You could definitely
CHGO Cubs Podcast.
You get 2 hours of content from me and Luke today if you really want to.
Have this one, then go back around dinner time or on your way home, stuck in traffic, and listen to the other one. All right, Ryan Pressly did a Zoom interview. They took it on marquee, and he was doing it from apparently his SUV as he was waiting, I think, to pick up his kids.
I think he said something along the lines that he was in a parking lot for his kids' parent-teacher conference,
So there was no jersey going on his back holding up Pressly and the number, but we did get to see him.
I loved it, and maybe this is an age thing for me as I get older, is like the more normal a guy comes off, the more I'm going to like them. And doing an introduction to a team press conference that's put live on television, doing it from your car, from clearly your iPhone or something like that, while like either before or after your kids' parent-teacher conference, is the most normal thing ever, like the process of his day. So I specifically love that kind of stuff because we look at athletes, players and stuff, and sometimes they get put on a pedestal. It's just nice to see this guy's just another normal dude. He can just throw baseballs really good.
As long as you can hear him and see him, I really don't care.
Sure.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes you get the press conferences where the kids come up on the desk and it's cute for a second and then you can't hear any answers, or you get the opposite. You get a guy who's out in his backyard in the lawnmower, the neighbor's going by next door. You're like, what is this worth? But this one was fine. So right out of the gate, one of the things we had heard about Pressly was there was a tweet, a report somewhere on social media I read, hey, he's demanding if he's going to waive his no trade clause, got to be guaranteed the closer role, okay? Obviously, Porter Hodge did it last year. Here is a clip direct from Marquis' Twitter they put out of him answering, are you going to be the closer?
Obviously, they said I would close some games. I think Nate Pearson was Potter Hodge was closing. And he had an unbelievable year, put up great numbers. I think we're going to be a pretty dynamic duo in the back end of the bullpen. I'm going to go into camp, competing for that ninth inning role, whatever happens is going to happen. And if they think that I can pitch in that ninth inning role or the eighth inning role, then, my job is just to go get 3 outs, 4 outs, 5 outs. It doesn't matter. I just want to go do my job and be able to bring a win to the team and just help everybody be successful. I just want to help. I just want to win, honestly, and however which way I could do that, whether it be in the ninth inning role or the eighth inning role, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to win.
He says all the right things there, right? Like we've kind of heard behind the scenes that he hated not closing last year. Really didn't like it. So this was an opportunity to have that back in his life. He said he, likes the Cubs. We'll hear about that and how he was kind of recruited to make that decision. But one thing I like, when he mentions Porter Hodge and says we could be a 1-2 tandem, we could be a nasty combo, I liked what he followed it up later in the press conference with when he was talking about maybe mentoring some of the young guys in this bullpen a little bit. There's a lot of young guys with really electric arms, but they all haven't been through it before. This guy closed out a World Series.
Yeah. It was kind of, when we talked about the trade originally on Monday, over the weekend, I was not necessarily all for this move just because he didn't have the greatest 2024 season from the Astros, gives me Hector Neris vibes, all these things. But the upside or the things that I like about the move is the intangible stuff. Been there, done that, been in the postseason, had great success in the postseason. And so, yeah, when you bring a guy like that with that kind of experience into your clubhouse and have him helping mentor all these young guys like a Porter Hodge and other names that are in that bullpen, yeah, I do think there's value there. I don't know if we'll ever be able to sit here and say, oh, because of Pressly, this guy did this.
Yeah.
But
you won't.
We probably won't. But I do think that from I'm trying to think of the right word, just clubhouse
like a mix
culture, stuff like that. I think those things are important. Those things really are important. We just never can know how much it really matters because we're not in the clubhouse,
Yeah. Godfather Michael Collada says, let the guy start the season closing. That's his bread and butter. If it doesn't work, you move to the next guy. I like that theory. I think he's earned the right, even though Porter Hodge did a great season, to at least be 1A going into spring training and Hodge 1B. By the way, the CHGO Sports YouTube page, give us the old thumbs up, and that's the best way to enjoy the CHGO experience is to subscribe to that CHGO Sports YouTube page. Stephen, what number did we hit? Didn't we hit?
We hit 75,000 over the weekend.
75K, moving up in the world.
Credit to us.
So he talks about Hodge, and then remember, this is a guy who was setup man, then closer, then last year back to setup man, didn't love it, but also as he told us in the press conference, he said, listen, I had some mechanical stuff going on last year, and it was driving me crazy. Mentally, it wore on me. I just couldn't fix it, right? Remember when Jameson Taillon was trying to fix his fastball, and it was just like, it took almost the entire season for him just on little side sessions to try and figure out something very small to adjust. And he's like, when I get to the offseason, I'll be able to fix it. Well, this is Pressly saying he's been working on all those things that he thinks he's identified with a guy. And he says 98% fixed. He's excited to get to spring training and now try those things to recreate the mechanics against real live batters. So he's going to have that opportunity real soon. Now 11 days till pitchers and catchers have to be in Arizona to report. So it's good to know that he identified something, and it's not just we looked at the numbers, and like you said, you can see there's been a decline, but at least he's identified something that he thinks could be part of that. I know some people say, well, the change in role also impacted him mentally, so that could be part of it. This is him on now talking about waiving the no trade clause, being convinced that leaving his team in Houston and his family, all those things, is the right thing to do coming to the Chicago Cubs. This is from Marquis' Twitter page.
Playing for the Chicago Cubs, a pretty historic franchise, and then you get to go pitch in Wrigley is something that I've always wanted to do. I mean, even as a little kid, watching Rookie of the Year and stuff like that, you never think that you're going to be able to have a chance or an opportunity to do it, and it came about, and having a lot of long, hard conversations with family and friends, so it was tough to make this decision, probably one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But I think, playing in Chicago has kind of always been a dream of mine, and I'm excited to get out there and put on a Cubs uniform.
Said he talked to Tyone about the decision. He talked to Dansby, who texted him right after the decision. He actually knows Tommy Hotovy, has known him for a long time, back to Hotovy's playing days, right?
I think so.
So that's interesting that he'll have that relationship and potential trust built into this organization as well.
I've got a question for you guys. All right, so I'm going to compare last season to this season with closers now. Ryan Pressly comes in. He's got 104 career saves. Adbert Alzolay, he only had 23 coming into last year. Where's your confidence level in your closer going into 2025 now? Is it higher or lower than it was last year?
For me, I would say that the likelihood of things going better this time compared to last year are higher just because he's done more. Alzolay was to me, I think all of us, not just me and you and Ryan, like I think Corey and Brendan said something along the lines of this too. I don't mean to put words in their mouth, but so they'll correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe going into last year, we all felt like Alzolay could be like what Hector Rondon was, maybe a guy that can get you to the trade deadline, and then if you're in it, you can go get that big arm closer or whatever. Something not necessarily like a Aroldis Chapman, but just something better. Because I feel like we liked him. He saved games, but we always knew there was issues with the lack of whiffs.
Right.
And so with Pressly, I think the fact that he has not only been closing games for multiple years, not just regular season, but in the postseason, and has all this experience, that alone gives me more confidence than I did with Alzolay. Now, what happened with Alzolay, I didn't see that coming at all. I did not expect him to be not only that bad, but also, get hurt, and now he has Tommy John and he's signed with the Mets, whatever. But I just think it's two different. It's when I say it's night and day. Yes, I think on the base, yes, it's a lot different.
I think we have more confidence in the bullpen already. Hopefully, it's not done. We'll talk about that later in the show. But also, he's been there, done that. He's pitched in the biggest spotlight you can have, the World Series, closing it out for the Astros, right? So he has some big-time experience in high-leverage situations. It's the most experience the Cubs have had at this spot on their roster since Kimbrel.
Yeah.
And it's not even close. And it has taken a while for them to try and find this guy. He's clearly not like a 4-year answer. He's probably not a 2-year answer. But right now, he may be what they need to try and get them to that next step with a guy like Porter Hodge or Luke Little or maybe Ben Brown or whoever that pitcher might be that you think can take the torch and carry it moving forward. But for right now, going into camp, he's been told he's going to get some closing roles, and he'll probably be 1A going into spring training. Talk more about it in a second, and we're going to hear one more bite from him. But first, a word from our sponsors. Whether it's pro or college, the app to bet football is Circa Sports Illinois. Circa Sports is sports betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, exceptional customer service. Bet on all your favorite teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, or in-game. Circa Sports has it. Fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Oh, I'll be betting on the Super Bowl. You can guarantee that. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Cody, in just a few minutes, I'm going to ask you about who you would bet on to have the most saves for the Cubs this season.
Ooh.
Think about it.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm betting on South Dakota to beat Omaha tonight. So,
okay.
You can perhaps ride that. Maybe if you go to your local Hooters, and maybe they'll have the game on because they have not like
great place to watch sports.
It's a great place to watch sports and eat a lot of really good food. All right. Is there any better combination than Hooters and Chicago sports? Probably not. All right. What makes the original Hooters so special? Simple. They care about their people, the food they serve, their guests, and their community. And it's an experience like no other based on years of hard work. Some of the things I like at Hooters. I love the wings, obviously. Are you traditional or a boneless guy?
I'm a boneless guy. Does it taste better off the bone? Yes, it does, but it's just too messy, and I'm not into it anymore. At my age, I don't have time to deal with trying to pick the meat off.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I'm more of a boneless guy, too, but,
They're good. They brought them in. They're good. I like the drummies.
Yeah, now...
Drummies are less work.
Let me just say, the people who can just, eat the traditional ones, in one bite...
Yeah, they're superheroes.
I don't know how they do that. If there's something I would like to learn how to do, it's that.
Yeah, it's a special trick.
You can learn how to do it at Hooters, perhaps, all right? You can grab the Hooters chicken tenders and fries or chicken tender tacos and fries for just $9.99 each right now at Hooters, all right? Feeling bold? Try Hooters' new mango habanero wing sauce. Toss your wings or tenders in the sweet and spicy kickstart your 2025. Drive to Hooters' new shareable apps like crispy pickle fries and warm salty pretzels. That's a lot of good stuff. That's all I'm saying. Pretzel. That's all I'm saying. Football this weekend, or not? Well, in 2 weeks. This, the big game.
Yeah.
Right. We have college hoops tonight, tomorrow, literally every day until baseball season. Really, there's so much sports that you can be watching while at Hooters. Right. There's just no better combination, in my opinion. Right. So cheer on your favorite teams from any of the 11 Chicagoland Hooters locations. You can even order online for pickup and delivery. Check them out at theoriginalhooters.com.
I know there's one in Schaumburg.
Yeah, so there's one in Aurora, Countryside, Downers Grove, Joliet, Lansing, Melrose Park, Oak Lawn, O'Hare, Orland Park, Schaumburg, and then the one in Old Town on Wells Street here. So there's one here in Chicago, but there's more in the suburbs.
So Ryan Presley introduced by the Cubs today from his SUV, and he said a lot of good things about the closer role. He said all the right things about Porter Hodge. He said all the right things about, always wanting to play at Wrigley Field and be a Cub someday. He mentioned how great of a dude Kyle Tucker is, and he said, I thought one thing that stuck out about that was he said, I don't think he scratched the surface of what he could be. And if that's true, this is going to be a fun season. And then, of course, he was asked about another Astros teammate who happens to be a free agent and occasionally dropped into Cubs rumors because he's probably the biggest name still on the free agent market, right? We talk about Alex Bregman. We've talked about it. I still say it's a pipe dream. Here's what Ryan Presley had to say about free agent Alex Bregman.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would love to play with Breggy. He's one of those guys that you have in the clubhouse that, man, all he wants to do is win. He doesn't care where he's at. And that's the one thing, I love about him. He was the heartbeat, of that clubhouse in Houston. And, having him come to Chicago would be an amazing thing, I think, for us. However, I don't know exactly what's going on in his camp. I just, me personally, I would love to play with him again just because he's just a solid dude and a great teammate. And, his kid plays with my kids and, our wives are close friends. So again, having another familiar face on the team would be, super helpful. And that left side of the infield would be really, really good. But I still think we're really good with or without him signing, but again, I would love to have him with us in Wrigley.
So that was from Marquee and their Twitter page. Marquee carried the press conference earlier today, and apparently they're going to have a one-on-one with him on their 360 show tonight. I'll say this. It didn't sound like he had inside information on Bregman close to something.
He probably wasn't going to say anything.
Right. He was saying nice things about a teammate and a friend. He said all the right things there. But then he followed it up with, I don't really know what's going on. I think we're good without him. Again, I think it's so unlikely that it's happening. And I don't think it's any closer than it was. But at least if you have that dream of Bregman being the third baseman this year, having one of his good friends on the team now and just making that decision along with Tucker, maybe that would draw him in. But it didn't lead to Roki coming to the Cubs, so or Ohtani or anybody else.
I've actually started to fall back towards being against bringing Bregman in.
I just want Matt Shaw to get the opportunity at this point. Just move on.
It's not that I don't like Bregman. I think Bregman is fine, but maybe it's just through all this, sitting here going through all this time, just waiting, and then going through just the facts. If the Cubs sign him, they have to send 2 draft picks to the Astros. And are the Cubs going to sign Alex Bregman to a 5 or 6 year deal? No.
It would have to be short term. So then is it really worth it to have him for another guy that could be just a 1 year rental to lose those draft picks?
And if it's not a 1 year rental, that means he wasn't good enough in 2024 or 2025 to want to opt out. And then you're in the same situation you were with Cody Bellinger last year. And we'll be sitting here talking about the Cubs trading him for as a salary dump. That's what the optics could look like if he doesn't have a good 25. Again, I'm here for it.
He'd make them a better team this season, most likely.
Most likely, but the fact of the matter is the Cubs aren't going to go for more than a 3 year deal, and it's not even really a 3 year deal. It'll be a 1 year deal with an opt out after next season. I would be shocked, mind blown if it's anything different. I would be shocked if it's anything different. That doesn't mean I don't want him, because I do think that it would be a great soft landing spot for Matt Shaw. But if you didn't have to give up the draft capital, international free agent space, free agent money, I think that I would be a lot more on board for it. But
and a 1 year with the player opt out, right, or a 3 year with the player opt out after one. If he has a great, let's just throw that scenario out for a deal, right? If the guy has a great season, he's gone. If the guy has a bad season, you could be stuck with it for 2 more years. So,
or again, like I said, could be salary dumping to a team that desperately needs a third baseman and thinks he can bounce back, and they have
maybe
their payroll is set up to where they can take that money.
Based
off the reports right now, Bregman is asking for $30 million AAV. The Astros are sitting around 26. I think the Astros are where they should be sitting at. I think Bregman is asking for way too much money right now, on top of the fact that he's still sitting out here thinking he's going to get a long-term deal. Maybe he can get that long-term deal with the Astros because that's where he's been his entire career. But I just don't see him getting $30 million AAV. I don't see it.
Let me ask you guys this. Luke, you called it a pipe dream.
I do.
Give me each of your percent chances that Alex Bregman is a Cub.
2%.
2.
I'll go up to 5.
Are those numbers now higher because Ryan Presley on the team?
It was 1%.
Okay. Oh, you doubled.
Yeah, I
saying there's a chance.
1 to 2.
I went 5 because I probably said 10% 2 weeks ago. I don't know if I said
I don't think it's happening. And
I was definitely more so into it a few weeks ago than I am today, and it's largely just because of all the things that the Cubs would lose if they signed him based off, the qualifying offer and all that.
I think he'll find that common ground with the Astros, and eventually they'll reunite. They're not going to lose Presley, Tucker, and Bregman all in one season.
Well, and also like the Red Sox and the Tigers have been linked to him all winter too. Yeah. And those teams, the Tigers, I don't know why. I don't know.
Tigers for sure, yeah.
I don't know why the Tigers haven't jumped in. Now, if the Cubs didn't have Matt Shaw ready to go potentially, I'd probably be a little bit more desperate for him. But we've talked about Matt Shaw, and we've said, the projection systems, even if he doesn't outperform those projections, that's still better than what they got at third base last year.
Yeah.
So, I'd rather them spend some money on the filling out the rest of the bullpen and getting a starting pitcher. Like if the Michael King stuff is true, then great. He's going to make what, $8 or $9 million next year based off of whatever happens at arbitration for him. If you can get that trade, and maybe like part of the rumor about Michael King in general includes Suarez as well. Like if you can get King and Suarez in a trade to go to fill that bullpen and add King to the starting rotation with Steele and Imanaga, I feel really good about the pitching, and I have optimistic views about the offense, especially with Kyle Tucker added in there.
Presley wasn't the guy that I circled at the beginning of the offseason and said, this is the guy I want to be the Cubs closer. He wasn't the guy that I had, or any of the guys that I had targeted and said, this guy and this guy. But now that he's here, I agree. I like the deal more than I did a week ago. And now when I look at it, I say, I still want to add one more guy. Now he did mention a lot of guys, there's Theobar. They have added names. Morgan from Cleveland. They have added some depth. So I wouldn't be shocked if they actually are done adding to the bullpen, but I still would like to see just one more piece to go along with him. One more veteran guy that gives you some sort of peace of mind that if the young guys can't pull it off, that they've got that depth.
Well, old pal Bruce Levine says the Cubs aren't done.
Poteet, thank you, Gary. So, another one.
Well,
they aren't done. They aren't done, and then the question is, but where aren't they done? And to what level? Like Presley is a real name, but some of the other names we've talked about for at least the bullpen, that list is really starting to thin out, right? Yeah. I mean, it is starting to thin out unless you start to go the trade route and then you start taking on other things that go along with the deal. We're going to talk about our center field rankings for the National League coming up in the next segment, where PCA sits and where he could sit by the end of the season. That is the debatable part of the whole thing. I think where we have him ranked is going to satisfy most people. Some PCA lovers may say, oh, you guys are haters.
Well, we sat in the office yesterday and put it together, and then you left, and then I looked at it and was like, okay, let's...
He slowly moved down the list. Yeah. I went out there and said, let's just put him at the top and make people angry. Because I'm an instigator,
Well, I didn't look at all the replies to our left field one, but... I felt like we didn't get completely dragged, so maybe we're not so bad at this after all, Luke.
There's still time.
Yeah, there's still time. There's still time. It was posted late, so not enough people know that.
I posted at noon yesterday.
No, I'm saying the audio portion of the show. You were saying it was, so don't forget, you can still listen to yesterday's show. We're going to talk about this new section of Wrigley Field that the Cubs unveiled today as well. It's like this, might be a new home for the Friday 120 Club if the bosses are able to, throw a little green down, put a little money down on the Friday 120 Club. We'll see. Or might just be back in the bleachers. Anyways, we'll talk about all that in just a second. But first, a word from our sponsors. CDJR, for the best way to start 2025, head to Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram and shop the Start Something New sales event to score some of the New Year's best savings on new vehicles. Hurry in today to browse their huge inventory of new vehicles and right now get 0% financing on all new 2024 Jeep models or shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. Let the amazing team at Ray CDJR help you during each step of your car shopping journey. And with Ray's Price Promise, the numbers you're hearing right now on the podcast are the same numbers you can expect in-store and online. That's because Ray's Price Promise means no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees. So if you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you got to check out the team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. The only team we recommend. Visit them today on Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or RayCDJR.com. Serving the community since 1963. 0% on all new 2024 Jeep models and 125 vehicles priced under $20K.
Can't beat that. That's a great deal. All right. Another great deal. Started by two college friends, Saturday Neon makes officially licensed collegiate logo LED neon signs perfect for your home, office, dorm room, fan cave, or bar. Check out their new Essentials collection featuring almost 50 of the biggest schools across the country and counting for only $75. No better way to represent your favorite Big Ten team. In my opinion, Luke, they should probably get an Eastern Illinois and a Valpo one. Just my opinion.
So we're going to do big schools.
In our opinion, they're big schools, right?
Start with the Harvards of the Midwest.
Exactly. Or the Dukes of the Midwest, whatever. Unlike traditional neon, these LED signs won't break or shatter, but still give you that classic uniform glow that you know and love. LEDs last up to 100,000 hours, so you'll be enjoying your sign for years to come. Super easy to install using the provided hardware or with 3M command strips. They have low voltage, so they don't get too hot and are safe to touch at all times. The perfect gift for this upcoming Valentine's Day, perhaps. Right?
What says I love you better than new neon?
That's what I'm saying, right? CHGO has used Saturday Neon to get our studio signs, and they look great. It's in Studio A, usually above Luke's head on the, what is that thing? Whatever that thing that's called.
The set.
The set,
Yeah.
yes. I'm sorry. Use code CHGO for 10% off your order at SaturdayNeon.com.
Honey, I got us a new Illini neon sign for Valentine's Day. It's going right above the headboard.
Hell yeah.
An orange glow to the bedroom. Orange and blue.
That'd be sick. Well, you were a DePaul guy when you were a kid, right?
I was a big DePaul fan as a kid, yeah.
You had a DePaul one. They might be back. Chris Holtman's doing some things over there.
They're better. They're better. I don't know why they're not at least as good as Marquette. They're the same school, basically, only they can recruit directly in Chicago. They don't put the money in that Marquette puts in.
Shaka Smart. He's kind of built different. But
yeah. All right, so we are ranking National League center fielders. PCA had this dual season last year. The first half had people like Greg Braggs jumping off the boat and saying the guy's a bum, he's a bust.
Yep.
And then by the end of the season, you had guys like Greg Braggs saying, we got our guy.
Yeah. And he had to apologize to me for having to listen to him.
So which piece of the season do you believe in more going into 2025? We're talking about where guys sit right now. So we looked at it and we said, all right, look at the list of names. And it's hard to identify exactly. There's only a handful of guys that you can say are only center fielders. There's a lot of outfield guys that have become interchangeable. They go right, left, center. Jackson Merrill, we thought, was pretty clearly top of the list. Terrific season, right? Terrific young player. Now, there is something to say that, like, if you were to take Merrill's minor league numbers and then you take PCA's minor league numbers, you could say, well, now, wait a minute. Maybe PCA is just a little bit slow to catch up because in the minor leagues, PCA actually had very comparable numbers, if not better numbers, right?
Yeah.
But Merrill right now is the better major league center fielder.
Yeah, Jackson Merrill had an incredible. I mean, this is to me is why when we talk about exceeding projections, this is why the Padres were, I believe, entering last season, they were projected to win the same or maybe just a little bit more, the same amount of games as the Cubs. They were somewhere between that, maybe they were more between that 84 and 86 number. I could be wrong, but they were in that mid to low 80s in terms of projections entering the season in terms of wins. And they won 90-plus games.
In a brutal division.
Because Jackson Merrill was a 5-WAR player, and he had hit 24 homers, 90 RBI, 16 stolen bases. His K rate was below league average. He, 292, 326, 500 slug with a 130 WRC plus. The guy was incredible at the plate. I believe defense ain't bad either. So
no,
to me, it was like, and again, like we said about left field yesterday, these are guys who are playing. If they're not playing, let me say this again, they are exclusively playing center field,
right,
or they've played more center field than any other position. And to be honest, if you look at our list when we show it, I believe there's only like 4 or 5 guys on this list that only played center field, and Jackson Merrill was one of them.
Is going to be the center fielder. Doyle for the Rockies is another guy. Great defensive player. For me, if it's not PCA, the best defensive center fielder, you better put Doyle in that conversation. Another great young player that you would like to have on your team, right? Yeah. Like, there's no question. If you're just looking at F4, it was Merrill 5.3 last year, Doyle 3.7. Now, we put O'Neal Cruz third, although he only played 23 games, and we acknowledge that. He only played 23 games in center field last year, but if you start looking up Pirates depth charts for this season, they all say O'Neal Cruz in center field. So,
and we can't deny the offense isn't there. Like, the offense is there. The guy can hit. The guy was a 3.5 WAR season last year. I think he can probably be a really good center fielder. He's obviously showing off the arm playing at shortstop for the Pirates. Is number 3 too high? Maybe. Me and you couldn't agree on this one, but we ended up going with that.
I feel like after Merrill, it's murky water.
Sure.
Right? Like, there's a lot of guys. Even if you go all the way down to the bottom of our list, I could slide some of those guys up much higher. Now, PCA, like I said, when we started to make the list, he was higher, and then he kept slowly for different reasons. Like Michael Harris Jr. is 4. He didn't have a great season, but
the proven track record.
The proven track record of being a potential star in center field is longer than PCA, so I've got to give him the nod.
Tommy Edman just got paid a ton of money, was a big hero for the Dodgers in the postseason.
And we know he's kind of a utility guy, but so is Chris Taylor, but he's probably going to get paid to play center.
Especially with all the money he got paid, right? So that's why Tommy Edman's at 5, because he's probably going to play center field more than anyone else, because on the depth chart right now it was him, Chris Taylor, and Pages. So, yeah, and I think maybe you can make the argument that Harris should be above O'Neal Cruz just based off the fact that he's been playing center field.
Right,
but,
I agree with that.
But Harris also had a down year offensively last year too. So I don't know. I think it's fine. I could go back and forth with it. But then I think, honestly, after Harris, it is a little bit more like, what have you done for us lately? Because Edman only played 37 games last year, but he, to me, and I've said this to you multiple times, you underrate Tommy Edman. This guy killed the Cubs a ton when he was with the Cardinals. And he played 37 games last year because he was hurt. But if you look at his overall career, he's been a solid player. So, and again, we're doing National League. This is National League center fielders. Now, would half these guys be on this list if we're doing all of baseball? No. But
Aaron Judge would be at the top.
You're right. But then you get to like Jake McCarthy on that list. And honestly, last year was his best year. And before that, he hadn't, there's not a lot of proven track record. He had his best season last year with the Diamondbacks, and he's going to play center field this year for them probably.
And I still like Alec Thomas there too.
Sure, yeah. And so it's just kind of, I don't know what's going on with that, but he had the better season last year. And then you get to PCA and Jacob Young. And when you look at PCA and Jacob Young's offensive numbers and then the defense, you can make the argument they're the same guy. But the only reason that I was like, we have to put PCA above him is that PCA showed off a little bit more power. He had 10 homers. Jacob Young hit like 2 or 3, right? They are both very young, but they're both incredible defensively. They were top 2 in defensive runs saved and outs above average for center fielders, I believe. So to me, it's I think that's fair to put him there in that bottom 5 because he just hasn't done enough with the bat. We haven't seen enough of it. So,
breaking news, Godfather, this list is fair. I agree with it. Steven, clip it off. Save it for history.
Craig also
Thank you,
says,
Godfather. We appreciate the support.
But then Craig says Edman is way overrated. I disagree. I thought he was a huge factor of the Dodgers winning the World Series last year. I mean, of course, there are bigger star players, but I think he's always been a really solid player. Maybe I'm just a little jaded from the fact that he's beaten the Cubs too many times. But so maybe you're right, Craig. I'm not sure.
If Garrett Mitchell is healthy, you could see him climbing that list as well. So I got 2 quick questions about
Garrett Mitchell
this.
could probably be in the top 5 if he's healthy because when he plays, he performs. He was like a 125, 130 WRC plus last year in the 69 games he played. Nice, right? So, but like he can't stay on the field. He's been hurt his entire career basically. So I think he's a big question. But if we're talking about just National League, I feel like you have to put him on there.
This is not this. Okay, now separate of this is where we think they stand right now in heading into the 2025 season or spring training. My question is, go through this list that we just created and tell me which players you'd rather have right now instead of Pete Crow-Armstrong. What guys on there would you be like, yeah, if it was a straight up deal, 1 for 1, what guys would I take?
I mean, the clear obvious one is Jackson Merrill.
Jackson Merrill. I think most people would say, yeah, Jackson Merrill. After the season he just had, a big prove it. Yeah, okay. Now, O'Neal Cruz, interesting. Michael Harris Jr., do you want to believe in last year? Because remember, PCA's whole year wasn't perfect last year either. Still a young player. He starts to creep up the list a little bit for me.
Yeah.
And that might be the tease of being a Cubs fan and seeing something that's special and different, but in a small sample size, which usually, Cody, I'm like, too small of a sample size. Don't get sucked into it just yet. And I do say that about PCA, but it was so different than anybody else on the team or anybody recently in Cubs history or Major League Baseball that you look at it and say, is it crazy to think by the end of 2025 that PCA, Pete Crow-Armstrong, could be, if not the best center fielder in the National League? Can you see the scenario where at the very least he's the second best center fielder in the National League?
Listen, Britton Doyle was number 2. So the only thing about Britton Doyle that puts him ahead of PCA right now is that his offense was there last year. And 2 years ago, and I remember this from doing multiple shows with DNVR Rockies, they were talking on those shows that I was on with them, they were talking to me all about Britton Doyle. Doyle, whenever I was talking about PCA, because at the time when I went on there, it was when PCA made his debut in Colorado. And so they were going back and forth with me about Britton Doyle. And I'm like, all right, so the guy can play defense because that's what they were talking about.
Yeah, he
can. I looked at the offensive numbers in 23, and I'm like, okay, so if this guy figures out how to hit, he can be a 4-WAR player because the defense is there. Doyle was 3.7 last year, and he 260, 317, 446, 23 homers and 72 RBIs. Now, Coors Field is Coors Field, and he only had a 97 WRC plus, so he was a league average hitter. Can he be better? Probably. He's very young. He could certainly be better. But we're almost talking about PCA here. When I'm talking about Britton Doyle, I feel like I'm also talking about PCA. Like the defense is there, the base running, the speed, all these things.
Game changer.
Can he hit? Can he find some consistency at the plate? That's the game changer. If he does that, this guy we'll be talking about when we do this list again next year. We will be putting PCA, I think, in that top 5.
I think there's 2 parts to that, and I agree with it. It's not just can he hit. Can he hit consistently, and can he sprinkle in just a little bit of power? Can he get to like 20 home runs? You start to put the power in there, and then that defensive ability and just the electric legs running all over the field. Now I start saying, whoa, he could really climb this list quickly. But again, small sample size, so I'm not saying it's going to happen, but can I see a scenario where he goes to at least number 2 on the list? Yeah. Do I think there's a possibility that maybe the guy at the top of the list could slide back just a little bit? It's always possible because nothing's linear. So I'm not too convinced he's going to go to the top of the list, but I am fairly convinced there's a really good chance if he hits consistently and for a little bit of power, he could easily go top 2 or 3. Yeah. And when we do this list next year, it'd be totally different.
Can I give you guys a White Sox pivot question since I'm a Sox guy? At the end of the 2025 season, who will be the best center, or which center fielder would have had the best season in Chicago? Luis Robert or Pete Crow-Armstrong?
Well, I believe it'll be Pete Crow-Armstrong because Luis Robert will have only spent a half a season in Chicago.
Usually true. Yeah.
I was going to say, like,
even if he has a good season,
injured, he'll be traded.
If he has a good season, he's gone, and his numbers will stop there, and we don't continue him for whatever team he goes to.
2 things are true, what Luke just said, but also Luis Robert has the higher ceiling.
Yeah.
He absolutely has the higher ceiling. He is a 30, 40 home run guy with speed and elite defense as well when healthy. But the downfall of him is he's always hurt, and he was atrocious last year.
Yeah,
definitely more power.
That's the genesis of this question, actually. I'm looking at his numbers right now. He played 100 games last year.
Yeah.
He had 14 homers. He had 35 RBIs. He batted .224, had a .278 on base, and slugged just .379.
Yeah.
Terrible year.
Compared to the year
This is a
before.
former top prospect in baseball.
And that's why the Sox
this is
haven't
a guy
traded
who-
him yet, because you're selling low.
That's a guy who was probably a top 20 player in baseball 2 years ago.
Yeah. MVP candidate had they won
But
games.
again, he was hurt last year. He was healthy 2 years ago. If that guy's healthy, that guy certainly has a higher ceiling than PCA.
So your prediction, Cody? Who has the better year?
PCA, just because I feel like he's at least shown to be healthy.
Okay.
If you're just saying which player has a better season, not just in Chicago, like now it's more difficult to figure out because you don't know what's going to happen with Robert. His graph for baseball was like straight up, and now it's kind of definitely gone down. PCA started down and has had a gradual climb now. Doesn't mean they're both going to continue that way.
Yeah.
So, you know, if somebody was putting out the question, who would you rather have this season? That's a tougher question. I've said a long time, if I were the Cubs, at some point, I would have been calling the Sox and rolling the dice. But the asking price, rightfully so for the Sox right now, is really high because they know that they're selling low on a guy. He could totally change what his return is by having a good first half of the season. All right, so the Cubs DFA'd Luis Vasquez. The Dodgers respond by signing Kirby Yates.
Well, they DFA'd Vasquez to make room for Birdie?
Yes.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, I believe so. So I don't know. What was your favorite part of Luis Vasquez? Did he steal home?
He had a moment where
he ran home at
ran
Wrigley
home.
and he scored. It was fast. He was fast. And then we were like, play him more, and he never played again.
Yeah, I remember, I think, pointing it out on a post game last year. It was like, yeah, it was just a heads-up play by Luis Vasquez. Can we see more, maybe?
We did not. We did not. Actually, he only had like one hit.
I don't know. Did he get a hit with the
I
Cubs?
think he was like 1 for 12 or something like that. I believe he had one hit for the Cubs.
Well,
so that's the end of that era. But the Dodgers, the name we had talked about, first we talked Tanner Scott, and then, first we talked Roki, and then the Dodgers went ahead and signed him. Then we talked about Tanner Scott, and the Dodgers went ahead and signed him. Then we talked about Kirby Yates, and the Dodgers went ahead and signed him. So we asked some questions in the mailbag, like, hey, guys, got any questions out there? And was it Gary that put it out there? No, somebody else did. It was NorCal Bears fan Jay says, quick emotional check right now. What team do you dislike the most, Cardinals or Dodgers? And I will just say what I said a week ago. I don't hate the Dodgers. I understand what they're doing. It's legal, but I'm starting to loathe the Dodgers. And this makes me feel that way even more. My perfect scenario, and we talk about pipe dreams, and Cody, I like to shoot Cody with the spray water to bring him back to reality. Yeah. But every once in a while at night, I have a dream where the Cubs make the playoffs and they somehow get hot for 3 games and they bounce the Dodgers. That would almost be as good as winning the World Series in 2016. That would bring so much joy to the baseball world outside of LA. Would be to, can you be the team to send these guys packing? That's what it's become now. Dodgers against everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone, like any general fan, would say the Dodgers here. But if you're talking to me, let me just say that it hasn't been nearly as fun to hate the Cardinals the last couple of years because they have objectively sucked.
Have the Brewers caught them?
I don't.
In the division, have the Brewers started to catch the
This
Cards?
is my thing about the Brewers. I don't even really hate them. Their fans on the internet are just insufferable. They act like they've won 10 straight World Series. They used game 163 from 2018 on their big whatever video board.
We won that game.
Like they keep bringing it up. It's been like 7 years, brother. Like give it like no one cares. You still have 0 championships. So
and you almost killed a bunch of us from CHGO.
Yeah, and you almost killed my guy Greg Braggs, right? So I would say right now my Brewers dislikeness is up there, but like yeah, I got 2 decades worth of hate towards the Cardinals on my back. So that just is never going to change, but yeah, I mean if you ask me like if they played a series, let's just say the Cardinals are theoretically competitive and they're playing the Dodgers in a series, I probably would root for the Dodgers.
I probably would too, but any other team I would root for against the Dodgers right now. Because
there's just nothing that's ever going to change that
and
for me.
It's not wrong what they're doing. They've got more money, they're spending it. They're willing to pay the penalty for it. Yep. They're going above what half the division is paying. And then by the way, Stanek to the Mets, that was the next name we've talked about. Mm-hmm. And then it looks like Canely to the Tigers. And we talked about Presley, so it's like Finnegan is still the guy out there, right?
He's still out there, and Robertson. As far as
Finnegan and David Robertson, those are probably the 2 best names.
I think the Cubs are
free agents that are still left out there. At least give me one of those 2, and I'll feel pretty good about what they did for the bullpen. There's no guarantee with a bullpen. You're never going to feel great about it unless you're the Dodgers because they're signing all the top relievers. But
yeah, this is from Gary's question. He said in the Discord, what final roster move do you want the Cubs to make? Another bench bat or another power arm in the pen like Stanek? Well, again, he put this in there
before
2 days
Stanek
ago.
gets signed,
Stanek is gone.
Estevez,
and Stanek was a guy that I wanted, but again, like I said earlier, like one more reliever, and I saw Gary put in our chat today that Ha-Seong Kim signed with the Rays, but I believe he was going to open the season on the injured list. I believe. I could be wrong on that. Not exactly healthy. 2-year deal with the Rays, worth $29 million. For what the role that I was hoping he would play with the Cubs, that's probably too much money for a guy like that. But I like him. I think he's a good player. Mm-hmm. But just for the role that the Cubs are looking for, I'm like, it's fine. And I don't think he would have gotten that kind of money from the Cubs anyway. And that's why he went to the Rays probably, because they're probably looking for a guy to play more so every day. So I don't think he was ever really serious with the Cubs. But yeah, they need to add I think Birdie is nice. The other guys, I don't really know. And so to me, they still need to add another bench player. Maybe Connor Joe for first base.
I'm still all for spending the money and getting Flaherty.
Yeah.
If you're not going to give me this next bullpen arm, then
would you rather have Flaherty or trade for King? Let's just be honest.
I kind of want to say Flaherty just because you don't have to give anything up other than cash and payroll.
Was he extended the qualifying offer? Do you have to give up draft capital for him?
I don't know where that's. I don't know.
I asked because
Steven's looking it up furiously right now.
I asked because he's basically the same situation as Bregman, I feel like. I think the reason he's still out there is because he's probably trying to get a 4 or 5 year deal and no team wants to do it. He's on his Twitter account trying to explain why he's doing this and why he did this. And he's going on foul territory and explaining that what the Dodgers are doing is perfectly fine. And okay, dude, will you pick a team already?
Scherzer said still out there. Well, that
Scherzer,
was my. Remember, I said
yours, yeah. You said Scherzer.
Tried to fire people up with Scherzer. I don't think it's crazy at the right deal.
I don't hate the idea of Scherzer. I just think that the reason I like King is because, like I said yesterday, I think it's definitely a possibility that they would try to do a contract extension, just because he would probably want more long-term security. Because if he wants to be a starter, he only has 1 year of that. So I realistically think that they could get a contract extension that is
and fit it in the budget.
And fit it in that budget, yes. Now, Flaherty and Scherzer, like, they're fine, but they both have, whether they're older or it's injuries, this or that. Like King, you don't have any of that. The only thing is just one great year as a starter. It's the only difference. I don't know, man.
No qualifying offer for Flaherty.
No qualifying offer. Okay, so you don't have to give up draft.
Generally, I prefer to spend money than send out the prospects, but eventually you got to get rid of some of the prospects, because I said it like a month ago. Otherwise, you could have a bunch of Brendan Davises on your hand, and get nothing out of the guy. And before long, he's gone.
Like I said, if they send Casey or Alcantara, fine. And I'm operating in my head. I'm operating on the Cubs are going to give Kyle Tucker the contract extension. That's how I'm operating. If this organization is smart, they are operating on finding a way to extend Kyle Tucker. That whether it's before opening day, whether it's at the All-Star break, or it's in December, that's how I'm operating, because good organizations do that.
I mean, if you're asking what's the most important thing the Cubs could do in the next year, make the playoffs and sign Tucker to a long-term deal, would be 1A and 1B. And you could put them however you want. But to me, they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
We've begged for a superstar player. You heard the way Presley talked about him in the press conference. If you watch Marquee, he's that guy. He hasn't scratched the surface yet. Like, Tucker could be special. And when we tomorrow look at right fielders, you'll see Tucker in a very special company when you talk about right fielders, especially in the National League. There's a lot. First of all, there's a lot of good right fielders. But the Cubs have a guy who's as good as anybody.
Yeah. I agree.
For at least this year.
Yeah. We have one more mailbag, but also we haven't talked about.
Yeah, I wanted to hit. We'll save that other mailbag for tomorrow. I wanted to hit on that vault area in center field.
Well, I guess it goes good with my little tangent there about if this is a good organization, they will pay Kyle Tucker. And now it's like, okay, we're adding more premium seats to Wrigley. We're releasing new uniforms, and Tom Ricketts is just trying to break even. So listen. I think Megan Montemurro tweeted it out, like the costs for like the amount of people. I think for 4 people to sit.
That's the smallest amount, right?
Yeah,
4 to 25?
4 to 50.
4 to 50.
If for 4 people, it's $700 to sit in what they're calling the yard. And you get all you can drink and food
per person.
Yeah. Yeah, $700.
So the bosses aren't going to flip for that.
No, I think it's $700 altogether for 4 people.
For 4 people.
Yes.
Certainly not for 50.
Right.
But that seems like a much more reasonable deal.
Yeah.
700.
I don't think it's 700 per person. I could be wrong. Someone correct us on that. Don't let the facts get in the way.
I can't quite exactly. I know, there used to be just the shrubs. Mm-hmm. And then above the shrubs, they put in like that restaurant that's back there that you can rent out for events during the season or in the off season, whatever. Then there's also the level where I used to do like pre and post game from, and it's this last year, it wasn't used for anything. I believe that's what they're talking about. Like if you're back in the center field concession area, it's directly behind that. This last year, that section was used for nothing. Like Todd Hollinsworth, when we would meet and sit and do pre and post up there, pregame up there. I think that's the area you're talking about. I like that idea. I like the high top. I think the high top thing, I've never done it, looks cool in right field.
Yeah.
And it gives you a little Fenway feel to it,
right?
Right?
Basically have the same thing, kind of, like the high top at least, in left field too. Like like me and Bragg's always sit in 504. Then there's 502. And then like those little seats usually above where like the Nuveen sign is or whatever. So yeah, I mean the what it looks like is cool. Like I think if you care about what the ballpark looks like and all this and ballpark experience, game day experience, like I've never shit on the Cubs for that. Like they've made the game day experience awesome at Wrigley.
Yeah.
But listen, we're adding more expensive seats. We're releasing new uniforms with new gear. That's
got to pay for Kyle Tucker's deal somehow,
overpriced.
Cody.
We got to pay for Kyle Tucker somehow, Tom. We can go over the luxury tax, brother, because we're the Cubs.
Right field tomorrow. Tomorrow, 1:30, right here, CHGO Sports. Make sure you check out the show. Thanks for everybody that watched today. And don't forget, until next time, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.